very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo, and we're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. As always, okay, we're two, not three today.
Yeah, we're two, but of course, God is with us in the spirit. It's a brand new day, brand new week, and you know what they say, you can do nothing against the truth but for it. So every active adverse action against the truth is actually a recruit for it. A comforting way to start the month of spring, or if you like, the month of the beginning of rains, as far as this climb is concerned. It's your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
It's been a while I heard that thing, April Fool. When I was younger, it used to be a thing. I wouldn't know whether they still do it till today, but I was guarding myself against anyone that was coming because my head was just about coming to do the show as much as possible. But also, I've been reading a couple of things, Bukola, and some of the things we're going to get into. And one of the things that I read, I've been following, has to do with the issue of the return of Natasha Akpoti. I understand she's going to be back in Kogi today, I think in Lokoja today. But I also understand that the government has also put up some order banning gatherings as well as vehicular convoy and all of that. It's so funny and dramatic, the things that happen in Kogi State and the personnel that are involved in all of this drama. The issue of the recall process, I think, is still ongoing because INEC has to do verification of all the signature, especially their PVC, the number on their PVC, to be sure they are constituents of hers before that whole process will be culminated to see whether or not the recall will be successful. So perhaps she's going to our state or our constituency to say, look, I've got this, let's go. And now the government is acting. You know, we were asking one of Mr. Fanwo the other day, is the government involved in all of this? And he wasn't able to answer straightforward. So I hope Mr. Fanwo will come and answer questions again as far as this whole drama, yet another drama is concerned, just for her return back to the state is concerned.
Well, I wonder if all of that energy is not going to, you know, contrary to the intention, confer martyrdom status on the senator representing Kogi Central. If indeed the allegations she has leveled against the leader of the Senate is, you know, Senate president now, because there's a leader of the Senate. If indeed those allegations are true, then let the, you know, justice take its course. Let the courts do the job. All of the, you know, actions behind the scene may not necessarily, they may just be counterproductive, even if she's recalled. But that's the way, by the wayside, not necessarily what I am tracking this morning. Jeffrey, as far as I'm concerned, the price of petrol is on the minds of Nigerians this morning. All of the partners of Dangote Petroleum Refinery have, you know, activated an increase in the price of petrol on their, you know, pumps this morning. Well, prior to this time, that had been the case because even all the other independent marketers had begun, you know, to add a couple of naira to the pump price of petrol. And I recall our conversation with the president of Petra, and I was asking why this was so. If the naira for crude, you know, conversation was still on, and in fact negotiations would see to the renewal of that policy between government and its partner, Dangote Refinery, and indeed perhaps all of the crude oil refiners of crude in the value chain. And he said, no, it was just a supply challenge. And now we know that indeed, following the end of that contract, it has not been renewed. We don't know if conversations are still ongoing. And this is where we call out the NNPC yet again on the deficit of accountability. This is a crucial policy that has indeed seen perhaps a minimal reduction in inflation figures, that has seen some ease for Nigerians. This is where, you know, representatives of government should come through and explain to Nigerians what exactly is happening, because it's a policy that has indeed been lauded, you know, to stabilize the value of the naira as against the dollar. But we have not heard anything as far as that is concerned. And, you know, that is thumbs down for those, you know, concerned. And we hope that, well, perhaps if conversations are still ongoing, that policy is renewed and we have some form of stability in the pump price of petrol. Besides that, Jeffrey, Another interesting conversation over the weekend was a revelation by the head of service of River State that resigned.
Today is Tuesday, Bukola.
Yeah, I know, Jeffrey, but access chanced upon an interview that he granted as head of service, and in fact, it was, praising the achievements of Governor Simlai Fubara as having, brought about joy for River State civil servants. He gave them 100,000 naira bonus. It had never happened.
13th month, I think so.
Yeah, 13th month. It had never happened in the history of River State. Brought about renovations in River State civil service, in the infrastructure and all of that. Some facilities were carted away by the past administration, and the governor replaced them. And I'm wondering, was he doing his job as head of service? As head of service, you cannot speak against the government.
I was processing what is going on in River State, and it's political drama that is playing out. He has the right to say what he has to say. So they've been that back and forth between him, the governor, and here Edison was also on PoliticsToday. So there's a lot of drama going on. I'm just, as somebody who covers that space, I'm looking critically as to, do these guys really want peace? I mean, all sides, really, because the whole idea of this so what do you call it now, declaration of state of emergency, security concerns and suspension that we believe is unconstitutional, the president doesn't have the power. All of this is to see how peace can return. That's the core element in this whole thing. But now that this has happened, I was thinking by now we should be looking at the list of the committee that will make up those eminent Nigerians that would, broker some level of peace. Now we're seeing all this. So I really don't know who doesn't want peace in the whole drama.
It appears as if there's some forces behind the scene that are still working against the stability of governance.
So there are people who call merchants of instability. I don't know who they are. So this kind of thing, they make their money and all of that. So I don't know where the guy was coming from, but he's made this allegation. It's now for the government to respond to him. They've responded partly to him, but I also saw some inconsistencies in his statement. On one hand, he said he resigned willingly. On the other hand, he said the reason I was removed. So, okay, choose one, and let's know exactly where you stand.
And the interview that he granted pretty much picks holes in, the allegations he leveled against the government after his resignation. And so one wonders the disconnect between his account and the account of his wife. Why is there a communication problem between himself and his wife? Why was his wife worried sick and had to be crying on national television about the whereabouts of her husband? For
the record, he has a right to say the things he knows. So that's why I say government has to respond. But it was a bit funny to me when he said the governor, because I had an interview. I was asking some of the governor's persons, is it that he's the governor's confidant, that the governor, if he has such alleged plans, will discuss all of this? And what was a bit tricky for me was when the governor said that he just will decide the next president of Nigeria. They don't have that number.
They don't have that, absolutely.
There's Yoruba, there's Hausa, there's Igbo in terms of majority tribes. So there's a lot. That's why I say there's a lot.
There you go again.
There's a lot going on.
Coloring the politics.
There's a lot going on. So let's rest from Rivers today. Let's talk about what's spilling out in Edo State. That's where we're going to start from today. The incident of that disgraceful killing in Uromi in
totally condemnable.
Condemnable. There's a layer to that conversation we'll explore today, but there's been back and forth as to why this is happening, who is responsible, what should be done to the perpetrators, whether this is just a sign of bigger things that had happened. The people are complaining. There's so many layers. It's not just, so this killing has brought a lot of, revelation as far as the state of insecurity in parts of the country is concerned. But we're going to look at all of this today right here on the program, as that will be our very first conversation.
And we started off by talking about policy, so we'll be putting a spotlight on the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, Jos Kuru, and we'll be highlighting the role of that institution in nation building, even as the Director General of the Institute joins us on the program today.
And also, women in leadership will be exploring the conversation about women in leadership. As far as politics and leadership is concerned, we'll explore that conversation and get to see exactly how we can reposition the system such that women will have their right of place. We've been screaming and saying women need to be given a chance. Yes, we'll bring that conversation yet again today on the program.
An interesting question to ask, Jeffrey. Are the women's species under threat as far as leadership is concerned in the country? So I'm excited about this particular conversation. But that's not all. On this week's edition of our Ease of Doing Business conversation, we're analyzing the challenges in the real estate sector while also preferring solutions. So we'll be having an expert coming to share insight with us on what exactly is happening in that space.
I love that conversation. Real estate in Nigeria. Okay, we'll talk about technology and innovation as well as the sustainability of technology itself. It's I don't like to use that word, but I can't avoid it. Bukola's word. Bumper package on the program. So we'll explore all of this and many more things right here on the program on the morning brief. So hey, just sit right here and be part of the ride as we walk you through in a very fast-paced style every part of the program today on the on morning brief. Okay, so but from here we will switch gears now, guys, to the dailies, what the dailies are actually saying. And we're being joined on the program by media consultant, public affairs analyst, Mr. Adeni Ifetayo. He joins us physically today. Mr. Ifetayo, it's good to see you physically. I know that a lot of the time we have to virtually talk to you.
Yes.
How's it been?
Yeah, not bad. We are pushing it, and we hope for the best for Nigeria.
We hope that no one has played a prank on you yet on April Fool's Day.
You know?
we're hoping that your presence is not also April Fool.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yes.
Okay, let's get straight to the daily. I'm sure you've been covering and looking at a lot of things, but I think the Daily Independent is a good place to start. Rivers will emerge stronger from political crisis, Fubara assures. So I understand that some Muslim went to visit him in his home, and this is where he made some of those comments. What do you make of how he's internalizing and managing the crisis as far as this suspension is concerned?
Yeah, you said something earlier on that you felt that this period is the time that maybe Party A will reach out to Party B, and Party B will reach out to Party A, some eminent Nigerian, trying to broker a kind of peace. But I see that if they can be doing that, and that's what they should be doing at the moment, not that we wait on the 6 months. And I like the fact that is assuring the Rivers that they should not take laws into their hands. And like they said, that he believed that all things will work together for good. So I just hope that they are able to share their thought and let's just come to a compromise. But if you want to have it winner takes all, it might be very bad, even for the people who are the main beneficiary of whatever governance that is trying to put in place.
I know there's another one. You can see the governor of Edo as well as the governor of Kano State. And Governor Kwebolo saying that he vows that for victims, vows justice for victims. Yusuf wants those arrested. He wants them paraded. In fact, he wants them paraded, prosecuted, and compensation to the families of those that are affected. This, Uromi, is a big conversation. What do you make of this?
Yeah, not just only compensation, just like you said, and like the popular saying, where there's no law, there's no crime. And if people knows that they can get away with whatever atrocity they must have committed or they will commit, and it will make them not to shy away from it. So just like he said, it's not just only saying you pay compensation to the family who have suffered this loss. No money can bring them back, whatever it is. But at least those people should be paraded. Those people should be, it shouldn't be a preferential treatment like we've had in this country. Somebody will be jailed and that they will be saying that he has a flat in his prison room or correctional center. So everything should be made open, and so that you can send a signal that whatever thing you do, and also there should be some form of sensitization.
So at some point, should they be paraded? Because I know police is, again, if they are still innocent until proven guilty by our law.
Yeah.
So the issue of parade, what's the essence?
Yes, if you say you have 14 people in custody, yes, they will have their days in court. Also, I feel that the government should be open about it. It shouldn't be secrecy and all of that. So, and minute by minute or daily or week by week, let them be giving the citizen, you know, a kind of update on it, so that there won't be a kind of reprisal attack, you know, for people from our brother over there, and they know that, oh, they have done this to us, let's retaliate.
And it's a very big conversation with so many legs to it. The arms they were carrying, and you know, the worry by the people in Uromi prior to this time about the constant attacks. But we'll get into all of that. Let's go straight now to the Guardian newspaper this morning, and there's an interesting story that leads the Guardian. Fresh setback for AFCFTA ECOWAS protocol over tariff by Sahel states. And you know, I'm wondering, Ifetayo, if you have seen any active implementation that may have led to results, however minimal, in the AFCFTA agreement within the ECOWAS sub-region prior to this time, even when the other three states pulled out from the region. How much more now that they have pulled out and we're worrying about tariff by Sahel states? Have you seen any active takeoff in terms of, you know, what we can glean from trade within the sub-region?
No, not really. I think our leader, they need to do more, because they prefer to trade with other continents and Europe, America, Canada, as it were. And since we are talking about development in the whole of continent, and this time around, even if it is 1% tariff, you see what is happening between Canada and America and Europe, and the kind of counter tariff. But if you look at the statistics, though 10% might not be much, but it's a number. And of course, our border, they are so porous that there are some informal trade that happens there. For example, maybe during the Christmas, the ram, the animal, oops, nobody pay tax on them, so nobody pay duty on them and all of that. So, but regardless, I think they can still come together. It's only in Africa. I remember I had a trip of recently, and I got to up north there in the Africa, and the amount I was being charged to make a call back home within an African continent is so like ×3 when I got to Europe. Like, these are the things that our leaders should come together. As long as you're an African, regardless whether you're from north or south, whatever it is, you should, there's a kind of benefit that you feel that, yes, I'm an African brother. You'll be surprised that an European will be treated more in the continent than you that entered. So I think all this boils down to our leader. Is not just making a buck or a block of a region. How can we improve inter-trade among ourselves? How can we improve connectivity? How can we improve immigration and all of that? You'll be shocked that to get some African visa is very difficult than getting it in Europe. So those are the things our leaders need to look into, so that at least it will encourage African brother to do more business with ourselves, regardless whether there's a junta here or not.
There you go. You wonder what's in the AFCFTA document itself, if all of these impediments are in trade within the sub-region. But there's also another interesting story on the front page of The Guardian, which is also reminiscent of what is happening in Edo State. In Osun, Governor Adeleke is telling traditional rulers, sustain peace or face dethronement. Adeleke warns monarchs in warring communities. What exactly is happening in Ifon and Ilobu, and why are we still, why is peace eluding these communities?
You know, sometimes there is a political colorization in all of these things, and I think the monarch, because they are closest to the people, they should be transparent and they should be fair in their dispensing of judgment. And you don't take side when it comes to judgment or justice, like I say. And thank God the governor has read out, can I call it a riot act, that please, if you still want to sustain your throne, your domain, you need to do what is needful. You need to maintain peace. It's about talking to your people, engaging them, and don't take side. But I just hope that they will listen, because we all need peace, and no amount a man could pay for peace that is too high. So if, just you know, you release some things that you are holding on to so that there can be peace, because it will be beneficial, not just you as the king in that domain, because the people whom you decide or you reside upon, you know, I think this is not something too hard that the governor is asking from them. We all need peace.
Peace is a crystal word, yeah. It's crystal clear as we can talk about it, whether it's in Rivers, in Osun, in Edo, in Kano, anywhere. Peace is found. Almost. Thank you so much, Mr. Denny Ifetayo, media consultant and public affairs analyst, coming through as always to help us make sense of the dailies and the headlines in the dailies. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here once again.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll get to that very conversation around Uromi killings. We understand about 20-something persons who were living in Port Harcourt were from Kano State, a particular community, heading back for the festive season or this holiday, where attacks or they were bearing Dane guns found in their vehicle, and things escalated so quickly that 6 of them were lynched to death. And that has generated a lot of condemnation and controversy as well. We'll break it down right here on the program, looking at all sides, the layers of it, as much as possible. Join us in just a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's talk about that incident in Edo State. So for the record, for facts, the governor has actually visited the area where that killing happened. He's also visited Kano State to see his colleague, the Abba Yusuf, the governor of Kano State, to commiserate with them and assure them that justice will be served and compensation will be paid as far as those killings, those 16 persons that were murdered, is concerned. But there are layers to that conversation. We're going to break it down right on the program. I'll be joined by a security consultant and the CEO of Debris Protection Services, Mr. Dixon Osaje, joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Osaje, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Geoffrey, for having me. Good morning.
So first, we must be clear that every death, every act of killing anybody, for whatever reason, extrajudicially, is condemnable and unacceptable. So that record is out there. But let's look at the entire picture. From what you see and what you've heard and what you understand from an expert point of view and what has played out since that incident occurred, what do you make of this current situation?
Wow, it's disturbing, Geoffrey. And first of all, let me use the opportunity to wish the family of those deceased, may just rest in peace. I got to know about the incident just a few days ago, and I drove past Uromi when I was in Edo State sometime last week, and I thought it was fake news when it first got into the media, and later on I have to go to Channel's platform, and I discovered that it was real. I said, wow. And what came into my mind was that, why were these guys killed? What went wrong? And that is why sometimes we need to look at sensitization, because when we keep on sensitizing the public, like you rightly said, that the killing of any person is condemnable and not acceptable. I agree with you, because if we put people on check, if we bring people to justice, extrajudicial killing is a global offense. It's very wrong, and it's going to put us as a country in a negative limelight in the international community. We're not talking about we're not talking about cows here, we're not talking about goats. We're talking about human life, 16 human beings. And what went wrong? I've tried to ascertain what went wrong. I understand they were traveling, and they were traveling with arms and ammunition, or with, what's it called?
Den gun.
They are den gun. And I think that's another area we need to also talk about, so that, perception management is very important. Sometimes 2 weeks ago, I was made to understand that even the divisional police officer and some other people in the village were chasing some criminal elements in the bushes of Uromi. And, that was 2 weeks ago, because I was in contact with the Uromi division for an issue. So I was unable to reach the DPO. They say he was in the bush chasing some criminals or whatever the case may be. And when this incident happened, what first came to my mind, I said, was it the criminals they were chasing in the bush? I got to know it wasn't the same criminals, but I think the people of Uromi took the wrong steps, whatever the case may be. When somebody is being apprehended as a criminal, the first thing you need to do is to interrogate. After interrogation, you hand them over to the police. Even though they are vigilante people, they must follow the processes. That is the area of sensitization, and the Nigerian government or the state government of Edo State should start looking at sensitizing those vigilantes and the people on processes to take when you get people with arms and ammunition.
You know, it calls to question, this incident calls to question the role of vigilante groups in, you know, enforcing law and order and perhaps an intervention in a critical case such as this. And the governor has since, you know, suspended the head of the Edo State Security Corps as a result. So going forward, as we try to learn lessons from this experience, what should be the role? And are state governments doing well enough to define the role of their security initiative, security corps, in providing such interventions such that we can prevent this in the future?
Fantastic questions. We have vigilante groups across board. I was going to Abuja from Ayagba some 2 days ago, and I saw a lot of vigilantes guys on the road, and they were all with this dang gun. And what drops in my mind is that we don't have you know, effective number of security agents to protect the Nigerian territorial space. When I look at their gun, I look at maybe an intended criminal with AK-47, there's no comparison. It's just a waste of time, because when I come with a Kalashnikov or AK-47, you're holding a vigilante den gun, it doesn't, you can't withstand me. So from my own perspective, I see that as a waste of time. For me, I think the government should try to, you know, mitigate the spate of vigilante group in Nigeria. If we're going to have them, I think they should be well trained, and they should be captured in our constitution. They should be captured in our processes, security processes. Because if you have a situation whereby we are giving these vigilantes power of autonomy to act, or to react to criminal activities, something like this, what went wrong in Uromi, we transpired. And that is why we need to be very careful when engaging most of these vigilante groups. Some of them could be a bait, some of them could be working from the criminal enterprise. We don't know. Do we have their data? If we have their data, then they should be captured, because we're talking about security here, the protection of lives and property. Now, when it comes to protection of lives and property, whoever is engaged with such role, first of all, carry out mental tests, check their psychological well-being, check their mental well-being, their physiological well-being, and ensure that these guys were not, were not once criminal or has a good record. But here we have vigilante groups flaunting around the Nigerian territorial space, and I think the DSS, the Nigerian, the civil defense as well, that are solely responsible in regulating private security industry, should speed up their game and ensure that most of these vigilante groups are brought to book, are well vetted and well trained.
So there's another layer to the conversation. I know that the two governments are doing what they can. Even the federal government has also acted. The president is very straight with his message: get these guys, prosecute them, let them face justice. So that from the government is commendable. But we need to look back, just take a sit back, and look at what's precipitated to this point. Okay. We've understood that that area has been notorious for killings and kidnapping, especially Uromi, Irua, Ubuaja, so many of those places that the people are, they feel, from what I listen, because I listen to the local networks, televisions there, when people were complaining and talking about that, it feels like they are just left to themselves. The government is not doing enough. The state government may be doing something, but they may not be doing enough. So this feels like a poorly sent message on self-help. Is that what you see?
Yeah, exactly, Geoffrey. That's a fantastic point, because I think these guys try to resort to self-help. And, sometimes we fail to understand that restorative justice plays a very good role in the area of security management. And don't be surprised, some of these people who carry out this action must have lost their family or so. I know Uromi territory very well, and I understand that a lot of people have been killed in the bushes. Most of them goes to find they don't come back. That is true. And I rightly told you about the police officers going on operation some 2 weeks ago in the bushes. So when this incident transpired, I actually thought maybe it's emancipated from that operation. I never knew that it was the people who took laws into their hands. When the state fails the people, when society fails the people go back to self-help. And self-help is destructive, and sometimes it's very, very dangerous. Like what has happened now, I think the state governor is reacting with it to it with speed and momentum. He has sacked the head of the corps, and that is not enough. What he should be looking at is to project reasonable security forces within the Uromi territorial space and also Ugweben area. There was a time I was going to my village in Ewokimi. I passed through Ugweben, and the villagers stopped us and said, hey, there are kidnappers on the road. This road is dangerous by 6 p.m. I have to stay back and lodge in the hotel and go back, get to Ewokimi early in the morning.
This is still in Uromi area?
Now, within that exit, Uromi to Ewokimi is about an hour journey or so. So our people are living in a state of fear. And when people live in a state of fear, security has been defeated. Because when we talk about security, it's in totality for you and I to live in peace, for you and I to move around without being coerced, without being intimidated, and without living in a state of fear. But when people start living in a state of fear, security has been defeated. But for me, what I will advise the federal government is that they should project reasonable security forces and also bring back this vigilante group. And let's not write them off what they're doing. The vigilante guys, they are doing well from my own perspective. But when you do well, or when you are doing well and it's mixed up with incident like this, it's very, very terrible. It's been a long time we heard about extrajudicial killing. The last one was in Port Harcourt, and this one is already all over the globe. And I'm getting messages from different countries. What's happening in your country? Every blessed day, sad news, sad news. So things has to be put to check.
Sorry, Bukola. So do we really know exactly how things escalated? Because we're hearing all kinds of versions. There's reported there is the eyewitness. On one hand, they said the people came. They were supposed to be stopped at Izubuaja now. Then they got to Uromi, and then they had to ask them to stop.
Okay.
They had to go check their whatever it is they were bearing, and they now saw arms. Some version said it was one of the guys who tried to attack them first.
Okay.
There's that version.
Okay.
We don't know how true that is.
Okay.
But anyway, what happened is that the vigilante lost their course, literally, because they were supposed to protect these people and hand them over to the police. But for whatever reason, they failed to do that, and the people now had to resort to self-help. So what version are you hearing, and what do we do from here? Because this is a very dangerous trend, because people may be feeling, oh, is our lives less valuable than others as far as this is concerned?
Geoffrey, you see, I've heard a lot of versions, like you rightly said, and what bothers me most is that why were they traveling with arms and ammunition? Even if they have gotten to a checkpoint and they met maybe a regular police force or the Nigerian military, they would have been apprehended, and that would have been very good for them. And it bothers me how these guys travel from Port Harcourt, passing all through the military checkpoint, the police checkpoints, and it was the vigilante that identified that they were traveling with arms and ammunition, which is another. I don't want to blame the dead, and I don't want to speak against the dead, but I'm saying that we need to start looking at effectiveness of security effectiveness, because if the military could not identify these guys on the checkpoints, the police could not identify them. It was the vigilante that identified these guys. I think that is another cause for worry. But I think maybe during engagement or whatever the case may be, or the situation was not well managed from the both sides that escalated, and maybe one or two villagers just get to know that, these people were kidnappers, these people are kidnappers, they're kidnappers. And at the end of the day, they just,
They say they're hunters, right?
And they said, now, if you are a hunter, you are traveling, you should have dropped your arms at home, you understand? So, now we cannot even ask the dead, what happened? Are you guys really hunters? Who say they are hunters? How did that story come about? So if they are hunters, so be it. If they are not hunters, the disturbing situation is that why were they traveling with arms and ammunition? And I think we should start sensitizing the hunters as well. If you are a hunter, if you are going to any territory to hunt, please make sure that you are within that territory. But if you are traveling from a region to another region, drop your arms and ammunition so that incident like this does not occur.
Mr. Saji, we can talk about the role of government, and by extension, that would be security agent, the police, in deterrence on many levels. Deterrence, prior to this time, because from Edo State, we've been hearing the opposition crying foul over the negligence of, this situation in these towns that you have highlighted. And we didn't hear, whether or not the government was proactive rather than reactive to rein in on kidnapping in these communities. And then deterrence, as far as this event is concerned, we're talking about 16 travelers. And from the time that the first 12 were set ablaze, we didn't hear anything about security agents coming in to rein in on the situation. That means that the security corps, the vigilante network, had time to act such that they even had time, to set ablaze the remaining 4 travelers. So what does this say, about us as a people? on the one hand, and what also does it say about the lethargy of the police, to responding to situations like this?
Yeah, fantastic question. For me, I think as a people, it's an abuse on humanity, and what I perceive from that action of the vigilante group is an act of animal behavior. Whatever the case may be, even if these guys, in fact, they should have taken the glory in handing over these guys to the military, to the police, that, hey, we've caught some guys with arms and ammunition, but decide to go extra mile, to please themselves. I don't know. That act is totally condemnable. Even if they were arms, they were criminals, or they were kidnappers, or whatever the case may be. And that is the area of training. Where they train, who trained them? Now, for you to establish vigilante groups as a state government, there are necessary training you need to train these guys. There are roles and responsibility, management of crisis, management of crisis situation, incident management, and a lot of crowd disposal training must be given to this vigilante group, so that in next time when you accost people like this, the first thing you do, hand them over to police. But the second version of Bokola is that most people feel that when they hand over these criminals to the police, some of them tends to be released, and some of them are being released, and some of them don't face justice. So it's all about weighing the situation. But for us to get things right, the criminal justice system must be very, very effective. Like Geoffrey rightly said, when people like this are punished, like most of these guys that carry out this action, they should be used as a deterrence mechanism, so that next time when people are caught criminal on the way, they will know that the Nigerian space is not a place where you carry out criminal justice. You set human beings ablaze as if you are burning animals. That is not acceptable. Then in the area of security agent, that's where response mechanism comes to play. A lot of time, things goes wrong because we don't have an effective response measures. Response measures is very important in a given situation. I was in Washington last 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, I just saw some police overtake a vehicle, and they accosted this guy. They got an information. The response time was very swift. I was shocked, and I watched over and see what was happening. They did what they want to do, and they get the person arrested and handcuff the person. Now, this is security management. Our security agent must go back to the drawing board and understand that they are ready. They are meant to protect us, and they must put things in place. Their response measure must be very effective in every given society. And last time I was here, I talked about crime mapping analysis. Don't wait for an incident to occur before you send in security agent. That is a defeat on security management. Security management is all about going before the loss, going before the killing of human beings, going before the burning of properties, assets. So when you put in strategies in place, carry out crime mapping analysis of all those given area. Uromi, for example, is a crime hotspot area. Ugwebe is a crime hotspot area for most of these criminal activities. Then you project surveillance activities, project reasonable security response team, so that when incidents like this happen, the Nigerian police force will respond immediately before things get out of hand. But at this point, they didn't respond quickly.
In 30 seconds before we go, what action do you think government can take now, beyond what we're seeing in the dailies, to really bring back confidence in the people? You've made a very vital point that some of these people erroneously would have thought that if we give them to police now, what will become of them? Remember what happened with Deborah? Yeah. The charges itself made the NBA reacted because the guys or the people that committed that crime, they murdered that girl for whatever reason. And what was the charge? I think criminal conspiracy and inciting public disturbance. Do you know how that case ended? Lack of diligent prosecution by, I think, the police. And that's how the case was struck out. So when people see these things, they feel that the justice system, the prosecutors themselves are not doing. So what has to happen for this to, at least, before you think about it, you have to think like multiple million times so that people are deterred?
Advanced countries
using these two examples, what is happening in Uromi and what happened with Deborah.
Advanced country in the world succeed and strive through deterrence. Deterrence is the only factor you can, move a country forward. Deterrence in the area of specific deterrence. For example, you and I, if someone commits an offense, you punish that person. It's classified as specific deterrence. Now, that will send a message to the general public, which is classified under general deterrence, that, hey, when Dixon committed such offense, this was what transpired to Dixon. So we should bring back our justice system and ensure that the judiciary and the criminal justice system are effective enough to build the hope and confidence of our people. And our security agents as well should also ensure that they are quick to respond to incidents like this, and when things happen, they should respond swiftly so that our people don't fall back to self-help. But I must tell you the truth, our security agents, they are doing their best, because what they do is that they labor so hard to carry these people and hand over them to the judicial system. But when they get to the judiciary, most of them get to find their way out. So the judiciary should be held accountable in the area of justice system.
Well, this conversation is far from over, because it has brought a lot of layers of issues.
And we should be also scared of a reprisal attack as well.
Yes. I'm happy with the movement of the governor, Armando Kwabalo.
Fantastic movement.
The speed with which he's responded,
I'm so impressed,
I think is impressive.
Very impressive.
So now...
But we wish that this response had come prior to this time, because there had been many calls about women being raped in Uromi, unable to go to their farms. So I think we should be temperate in our commendation of the executives.
I totally agree as well that the same speed with which he's addressing this reactive situation should be more proactive.
More proactive,
More proactive. More proactive would have reduced, maybe avoided this incident. But our thoughts and our prayers are with the families of those affected. And we yet again condemn this act in its totality. Dixon Osaje, security consultant, CEO of Debris Protection Services Limited. Thank you as always for a very expert insight.
Thank you, Geoffrey. And thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless Channels TV.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to the next leg of the conversation and has to do with women in leadership. Join us in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. So it's time to focus on policy implementation, and we will set this against the backdrop of the role of the Nigeria Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS. And we have joining us on the program this morning the Director General of the Institute itself, Professor Ayo Omotayo. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the program. So I want us to start this way. Many who attend, the NIPSS, particularly the Senior Executive Course 46, they laud the Institute for its drill and how, they are trained to think Nigeria first. And, quite a number of these distinguished gentlemen and ladies who attend from the corridors of power. But what we see is a disconnect, between the values that are instilled in them and the lack of efficacy, so to speak, of policy implementation, of the policies that are implemented that serve as intervention, either for the economy or for the other aspects of life. I'd like you to speak to this for starters. How can you explain the seeming contrast?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And let me just let you know that every Nigerian is concerned about what questions you have raised. But basically, we have to understand a few things. First, not until recently has any government tried a direct approach at policy harmonization like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing right now. Just last week, we concluded a validation workshop on a national policy development framework that he asked that the National Institute carries out together with his special advisor on monitoring and evaluation of projects and, of course, on policy advice. The reason why there appears to be a policy disconnect is basically because governments come and they have different priorities. As we speak, Nigeria does not, by constitution, have a national priority in terms of what our priorities are in terms of health, the agri sector, the economic sector, so to say. So we have a situation where we sit at NIPSS, we look at the Nigerian polity based on the mandate we have been given, and we set out to research and reflect into some of these issues of our own time. And when we come up with policy briefs, we send it to government, and if it meets their priorities, sometimes they absorb everything, sometimes they just pick a few of it, and sometimes those things are left on the shelf. So for us at the National Institute, we have been doing our best to ensure that even before issues arise, we come up with policies that can address those issues. You will not forget that the National Center was set up as Nigeria's highest think tank, a center, the highest center for reflection, for research and dialogue by Nigerians of high academic achievement and, of course, policy initiators and executors. They come from all walks of the Nigerian lives, and of course, they understand what the issues are. And when we get together at the National Institute in this serene place in Plateau called Furu, what we do is to forget about how big we are or what we have achieved in the past. We all in humble submission, subject ourselves to a process of rethinking Nigeria's problem across all sectors and looking for solutions to them. But like I said earlier, when we come up with these solutions, sometimes it may not meet the priority of the government in power. And like I've said, this is the fourth time that the federal government will ask the National Institute to work together with a specific agency of the presidency on harmonization of policies. You may not know that up until now, we do not have a meeting point for policy considerations or a meeting point of policy dissemination. Every agencies, all the MDs come up with their own policies and execute based on what they feel their mandates are. But as a nation, we are getting together for the first time to ensure that policies are harmonized. And once we can get this framework passed at the National Assembly or approved by the Federal Executive Council, we are going to have a better and a coordinated approach at policies in Nigeria. Gone will be the days of policy somersaults or policy clashes among our MDs.
You know, Prof, that is quite telling. Again, I refer to feedback from those who have attended the NIPSS. They talk about how it is instilled in them to think Nigeria first, to buy Nigeria and all of that. But what we see is, you know, our elected representatives choosing exotic cars and extravagant lifestyles, and we wonder if they're the same persons who have attended the NIPSS Institute. But Prof, I'd like to now zero in on specific policies. What is your position on the contentious policy of fuel subsidy removal of the federal government, and by extension, you know, the Naira for crude policy, those twin policies? What are your thoughts on them?
Yes, for us at the National Institute, and I've said this on public television, that the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a very courageous government. We have reports here over the years advising government to look at this matter of fuel subsidy. We were at a point where the nation was going to collapse if the president did not take the steps he took. So for us at the National Institute, it was a very timely step that Mr. President took, and it has gone a long way in saving Nigeria. We were on the verge of collapse with subsidies. The subsidies we were paying were just totally unimaginable, and of course we were subsidizing fuel as far as Burkina Faso, as far as Sierra Leone in some instances. So a government that wants to succeed must take very tough decisions. And for us at National Institute, we commend the president for the removal of fuel subsidy. Even though the Nigerian polity may feel it is harsh, that we needed some more time to study it, but I bet you, if Mr. President had stayed a day longer in office and he hadn't taken that decision he took, I don't believe he would have been able to take that.
Prof, the reason I asked that question,
yes,
the reason I asked that question is because, again, feedback from those who have attended the Institute speak about the drill on policy, about how they are asked to rigorously research policy and refer to how it is conducted in other climes before they arrive at an ideal policy for intervention in any challenge in society. And if we were to look at the fuel subsidy removal policy, we find that in other climes, there are critical subsidy interventions for areas such as agriculture, such as petroleum products. But why is Nigeria adopting, something that is counterproductive for its own people? And why is the NIPSS subscribing to this as against what it teaches those who attend the institute?
Okay, thank you very much. Even before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, we have researched this, and we know that the subsidy was not going to be sustainable over a longer period. Other governments knew this, but they didn't have the courage because of this same effect that we are running from. Yes, it will be tough initially, but it is the best way to go. The National Institute does not exist to make people happy unnecessarily. What we try to do is to say, these are the pills you need to take if you want to achieve these particular goals. So the pills of the subsidy removal is a bitter one, no doubt. And we knew from the onset that there would be need for Nigerians to suddenly adjust. We have been on the feeding bottle for 48 years or so. And now, if you're asking somebody who has been on the feeding bottle for 48 years to suddenly just look elsewhere for his or our own food, there will be resistance. So for us, we know it will be hard for Nigerians. And Mr. President took steps. We spoke about palliatives, which of course he did his best. But do not forget that Mr. President sits in Abuja. State governors are everywhere. Local government chairmen are everywhere. All the subnationalities are there. They are also supposed to help in the implementation, effective implementation of the subsidies that were supposed to go with the removal of the subsidies. So to a large extent, Mr. President, together with the Executive Council members, have done their best in ensuring that palliatives reach those that are supposed to have them, and also to ensure that the effects, the negative effects, are well contained. You are aware now that because of first subsidy removal, we have gone into the use of gas. Gas has always been there, and we never took it so seriously. Using gas is an outcome of our Theme 45 study tour, where we're looking at alternative energy for Nigeria.
All right, Prof, if I may come in now.
Yes,
all right, if I may come in. We can debate about this as much as we can. You talked about gas as quite a good initiative with the CNG, but the penetration hasn't been as effective as it should be. The issue of palliative to cushion the effects of the removal of fuel subsidy, as well as the removal of subsidy on even FX, hasn't been as effective as it should be, because the records are there in terms of moving the needle. So in your books, because you've said Nigeria has been on a feeding bottle for a long time, what was wrong with the subsidy? Because I've seen leaders come and blame people or let me use the word now, make people make that sacrifice as far as repositioning our economic fortune is concerned, except themselves. So what was wrong with the subsidy? Was it poor, just a moment, was it poor management of the subsidy regime itself, or the corruption in the subsidy? Because even places like China subsidizes their own foreign exchange. There are places I could call that do some level of subsidy or the other in different sectors. So from your research, what was wrong exactly with the subsidy? Because Nigerians feel that this is one place that the government was helping, but the government said, we're going to take this out because it's killing.
First, there is nothing wrong with subsidy. Every government subsidizes one thing or the other based on the objective of that particular government. In this case, the subsidy regime over the years was not properly managed. Every government struggled with the management of this subsidy regime. And if it was going to kill the Nigerian people, I was going to be benefiting a smaller percentage of our populace, I think it was the right time for it.
So, Prof, sorry, Prof, I don't want to cut your line of thought. If something was not properly managed, Wouldn't effective, better management would have been the approach rather than removing it entirely? We're just brainstorming here because you're a policy person. The argument is that there were cheats in the system benefiting the rich and, you know, the poor was not really benefiting. So the whole idea is take it out from everybody. So everybody suffers. Of course, the rich will not suffer.
Well, the good thing is this, that you also mentioned that those who needed subsidies were not getting them. They were even subsidizing the rich. Our subsidy regime came to a level where the poor people were basically subsidizing the rich. Now, you spoke about having or looking for effective way of managing these things. We failed over several years trying to manage these things. And of course, it was the best thing to look for other ways of subsidizing the poor than using what is not to subsidize the rich. The first subsidy, as we had it, was basically benefiting the rich. They were the ones that had 5, 10 cars. They were the ones driving all the big jeeps. The poor man just wanted to get in a bus. But then we had a whole lot of entrenched interests that I could say were demonic, that were controlling government because they had subsidy money. So Mr. President, from my own understanding, didn't want any of those. He just said, let us look for other ways of subsidizing the poor. Let's fuel subsidy go, because it brings about efficiency in the marketplace. We couldn't even manage our borders, and of course, we do not have the resources to fully manage our borders. Fuel was going as far as Burkina Faso. Nigeria was subsidizing everybody. It meant that average Nigerian was subsidizing fuel usage in Niger, in Burkina Faso, and in all other countries. So we needed to, first of all, remove the fuel subsidy. Let us look at the ramifications of the challenges it was going to bring, which already we are seeing. And of course, government is intervening. We need fuel to drive our vehicles, to run our machines. And of course, we had gas that we were wasting for so long. So why would we keep putting money on fuel subsidy while we were wasting gas? I agree with you. It is tough now, but it is the only way out for any, to be candid, the courage to do it.
So, Prof, let me ask you the question.
There for other governments. And this president had the courage to do it. I am personally convinced, those of us at the National Institute are convinced, everybody that has come here to study, that we have asked to look all the groups, nobody, not a single one has said fuel should be subsidized at the rate at which it's being subsidized in Nigeria.
So, Prof, before my colleague comes in to further ask questions, this is the question the poor will ask. Now that the subsidy has been removed, and this president, of course, when he makes up his mind, he has made up his mind. Now that the subsidy has been removed, both for FX and even PMS, how is this benefiting us in the short term, and how will it benefit us in the long term? Does the Institute have an answer to such critical questions? Because this is what they are looking at. I used to buy fuel less than 200. It now fluctuates between 900, 800, depending on the season. I used to buy XYZ products for a certain amount. Now it has gone, the price is quite high. You know, FX used to be around 700, now it's about 1.5. So how is this benefiting the poor in the short term and in the long term? It's going to benefit the poor in the long term. And then Bukola will ask a question.
Well, most of the benefits will be in the medium and in the long term. In the short term, the government has tried to put out palliatives so that those who are suffering, the poor man on the street from the effect of fuel subsidy, would be able to make some adjustments. We need all to make adjustments to our spendings. So in the short term, yes. If you take the foreign exchange matter, the removal of subsidy on foreign exchange, you will see that now we do not have super rich people making premium off the dollars that are given to them. Everybody in a fair marketplace, you go there, if you need the dollar, go and look for it, no more restrictions. So everybody will have to adjust their spending, adjust their taste. With the removal of the fuel subsidy, we have Dangote coming on. We have the other refineries. the refinery in Port Harcourt has worked continuously for 110 days, if I've counted right. These are the short-term gains. Where we are buying fuel a little bit more expensive, but we predict at National Institute that if we continue with what we are currently doing, fuel by itself will come down. We're looking at it coming down as low as 750 before the end of the year. And of course, foreign exchange, we believe, will still drop to about 1.3 before the end of the year. And it is going to continue like that as our more refineries come into place. We will become a net exporter in the long run. The gains at this time are very little, but then in the long run, we will make up for whatever sacrifices we have made today as Nigerians. I mentioned gas. Look at the difference between the price of PMS and gas. And for over 50 years, we're burning gas as if we didn't have any alternative. Now, on this gas matter, let me just land on this gas matter. You see, government would provide the enabling environment. The gas we now have will lead to other investments. There will be more jobs for people. We will use the gas, and of course, the cost of driving our machines, driving our vehicles will come down. Look at our costs coming down. We look at those who are going to invest in gas, the jobs it will spin off. A whole lot of things are coming down the Nigerian way. All right. And we have to commend the president for taking these actions. To be candid, if we had stayed on fuel subsidy till now, the country would have gone down financially. It would have gone down the way of Argentina. With what money were we going to continue to subsidize?
All right, Prof. I like your optimism, but I wonder if, you know, the possibility of reduction in the pump price of petrol will materialize in the coming weeks rather than or months, because the critical conversation that should lead to the continuing reduction has been stalled, and there is no accountability from government on whether or not it is still holding. And in fact, the measure of importation of petroleum products that Nigeria is bringing into the country, we don't know how it has reduced following the resumption of work of the Port Harcourt refinery and the Uromi refinery. The NNPC is not giving us the numbers that we expect to have. My own, you know, reservation is the seeming contradiction between your support, which would be the official position of the NIPSS for subsidy removal, as against his own approach at teaching policy formulation, which would be how it is done in other climes. There seems to be a contradiction there from the feedback of those who have attended.
There is no contradiction, madam. We have said that some forms of subsidies may be necessary in different sectors of the economy. For us in Nigeria, saying that there should be we should drop fuel subsidy does not mean there is any contradiction. The National Institute exists to formulate policies, to advise government on policies. In the outcome of our 10-month study of about 96 participants in 2023 came out with the fact that we needed to switch over to gas as our transition fuel, and that government has done. A whole lot of infrastructure will come into place. We expect the private sector to come into this industry and let people invest. And of course, we need investment in gas distribution right now. And I'm sure we'll get it. There is no contradiction. We have not said that subsidy we shouldn't give some form of subsidy. And of course, even giving out palliatives is some form of subsidies. And of course, you know, government took steps to ensure that food prices that were affected, to ensure that transportation costs that were affected were immediately brought down by ensuring that big buses were retrofitted with gas engines for almost for as little as nothing. So there is no contradiction.
The jury is out there.
We are clear on our mandate. We know what we have advised government. We know what we are advocating. And I'm sure in another 3 years, people will be happy that the oil sector becomes a fair playing sector where nobody has an advantage over the other. If you want to import fuel, you have to fight to bring it at a lower cost than what Dangote is doing. You have to bring it at a lower cost than what
Indeed,
the
the jury is out there on the
doing.
efficacy or the necessity of this particular subsidy, and I believe that the verdict substantially has come through. Or whether or not it has favored Nigerians, the generality of Nigerians. It's clearly an ongoing conversation, and we wish we had more time to engage you on this very thorny subject. But we must thank you very much at this point. We've been talking with Professor Ayo Motayo, the Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, who joined us virtually. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And from here, we move on to another important subject matter, which would be women in leadership. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We like to have this conversation to put in the front burner because we want things to change in our politics, in our polity, because the level of female representation or women representation, especially in political leadership, is quite abysmal. In fact, we can argue that it's literal tokenism. For instance, the National Assembly, the 9th National Assembly, was way better in the Senate than it is now. Right now we have 4 female senators. One has even been suspended in the process of a recall exercise. And we can go down to even the House of Reps. So if we go to state assemblies, we're going to see a proliferation of that across board, which is why we're bringing this to the fore yet again. We're being joined in the program to explore this conversation by the chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, former state woman leader in Ekiti State, and a businesswoman, Honorable Yemisi Afolabi. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Madam Afolabi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
So, the way politics plays out, so the last time we had an election as a close call, 3-horse race in that sense, was in 2023. Before 2023, it was in 79 we had that kind of election. And when you have those level of exercise, the women are always a casualty in terms of representation. So the question is always, what can women really do differently to reposition their fortunes in elective position? The last person we had at that level was Patricia Ite. You know how she was kicked out at the House of Reps. After that time, that was the best we could see. Not even principal officers as deputy on both houses have we seen. So I'm giving all this background just to ask you a question about your understanding of what the failures are. Is it systemic? Is it the women not doing enough? What exactly are we dealing with here?
Yeah, thank you very much. I thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to be here this morning. And talking about women in politics in Nigeria as in the representation of women in Nigerian politics, I would say for me, we are not here. We are not there at all, because a lot of things is happening that at least talking about the people in the Senate now, I think we are having 4 before. Now we are having just only 3. I don't know how we get there, but I know we can still do better. And talking about what can we do to make sure we have more women in leadership position in politics. Number 1, we have to start early. As a woman, you want to join politics, you join it very early. What I mean by very early is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to aspire to contest for any political office or for any appointment, but you have to do it gradually. By learning it, you will know how things is being done. I want to make myself as an example. I joined politics in 1989 when they first brought PDP to my state. And then I was still a civil servant. And I was learning through my father. My father is my role model and my mentor. And whenever he's going for any political meeting, I do go with him. I learn how it's been done. And by the time I was given the opportunity to serve my state in 2015, it makes my job so easy because I've learned one or two things on how to be a leader. And it really helps me during my tenure. And to the glory of God Almighty, I was able to do even what my predecessors have not been able to do. So if you want to join politics, join it early, learn. Don't join politics because you want to make money, you want people to know you. Join it because you want people to have impact in the society. You know, some of us believe what we can gain from the society, but to me, I do tell people, what can I do for my society to be a better place? If you have that notion, it will be easy for you to perform excellently wherever you are. You will be stand out and you will discharge your duty effectively without any problem. That's number one. Then number two, we have to give rooms for mentorship. Our leaders, most especially our female leaders, they have to mentor the upcoming younger generations. They have to mentor them to let them know that it is we that can make this country a better place. Because as a woman, we know where the shoe pinches. We are the one wearing the shoes. We are the mother, we are sisters, we are daughters. And talking about the home front, we are always there, making things happen. If you go for any political program, you see the women clapping, singing, doing all sorts of things to add flavor to the program. But I'm telling you, and I used to tell our women, that women have left that stage. Somebody like me, I don't know how to sing that much, but if you put me in a place to do something, I will do it effectively. In fact, if you give me any assignment, I can tell you, you go and sleep, because definitely I will deliver. Because I want people to know that though I'm a woman, but it's not a barrier for me to know the right thing to do at the right time.
Yeah.
And to do
if I may come in there, madam,
it should be done.
Let's expand the conversation. Besides the place of mentoring, there's also the place of advocacy when you talk about female representation. And we can't talk about advocacy without referring to events of the month of March, which may have been the most challenging year for female representation in Nigeria when you consider the happenings at the National Assembly and indeed in Lagos State, the Lagos State House of Assembly as well. And this causes us to reflect, if this is the position of the system that holds power, which is male-dominated, what then is the fate of the 3 gender bills that I believe, is also before the Constitution Review Committee? What is the fate of those gender bills? Will they become law? Are you optimistic that there's anything good that will come out of that process as far as those 3 bills are concerned?
Yes, I believe solidly that something good will come out, because we will not wait, we will not stop. We'll keep yearning, we'll keep asking questions, we keep telling them the reason why they have to allow these things to scale through, because we can't continue like this. Most of all these are men, our daddies, our husbands, our brothers out there. They have female children. And before they know it, they will grow old. And they want to see them becoming somebody, a better person tomorrow. And if they are not giving us the opportunity now, we that are children or daughters of nobody, if there is no platform for us to operate, it will be difficult for those coming behind us to really get there. So I believe personally that something good will come out of it.
So let's talk about the one that is, let's call it the lowest hanging fruit. Elective position looks like a very long shot, although it's a possibility. So let's look about appointed position. So the president's cabinet, as the last time I checked, there were about 48 or 49 persons in that cabinet. If we want to do 35% affirmation that women always advocate for, we're supposed to have at least 17 to 18 women or 17 women in that cabinet. But I know there are about less than 10. So in that front, there's a failure to be able to meet up that level. We can go to some states as well, similar incidents. Some are doing better than the others. So my question yet again is, from where should women start besides what you've listed? Because if they are not there in the house to, make contributions and speak for their constituency, at least appointed position, those are low-hanging fruits. Why are we not seeing it? In all political parties, I must say.
To be sincere with you, I think it's not that palatable to hear, because the rate of women we have in all these political spheres, they are very small. They are nothing to write home about. But I want to make a suggestion. I said it in my last interview, that the first thing I want us to agitate on is, in any gubernatorial election, they should allow their running mates to all be female. Let us start from there. I know some of our leaders may not like this, most especially the female leaders. But to me, we have to start from somewhere. Let it be statutorily that in any gubernatorial election, their running mate must be female. And that is not limiting them that they cannot aspire to be governor. But let us start from somewhere. By doing that, our voice will be heard, and we'll have more female representation in governance. And this will allow us to, at least, we know that even if there's not going to be too many women in some of these political appointments that we are talking about, but it is statutorily that the the deputy governor of each state must be woman. And if we are starting from there, through the rapport of some of them, all of them will not be somebody that will not have that rapport with their boss. So by doing that, it will give for more opportunity for our women across board, from world level to the national level.
All right. Okay.
That's
fantastic.
the way I look at it.
We have
to start from somewhere.
Yeah. Let me also say some of the ways the men are thinking, which is an assignment for women. Men also think about what they consider political capital. The ability to mobilize and get them the vote is also important. So maybe women can also go in that direction, which I'm sure you play a key role since you've been a former woman leader in Ekiti State. Honorable Yemisi Afolabi is the chieftain of the PDP and a former woman leader in Ekiti State, also a businesswoman who joined us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, madam, for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
All right, to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll switch gears to ease of doing business in Nigeria. How well, how good, how bad? We'll find out in just a moment. Join us again.
Welcome back. And so in our conversation on the ease of doing business today, we'll be looking at the real estate sector and how that policy is making, business smooth sail for, practitioners in that space. And we have somebody who should know particularly what is happening in that space. Mr. Segun Oshudairo is the CEO, Arcview Limited. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, we can't talk about
Yes.
the ease of doing business without first of all looking at what seems to be the impressive performance of the real estate sector following the recent GDP rebasing of the economy, where the real estate sector outperformed about two or three other sectors with 46.52% in the third quarter of 2024. But some would say that despite the declining purchasing power of Nigerians, the real estate sector is performing. So where is all of that resources that is being channeled into that sector? Where is it coming from if Nigerians do not have enough
to buy
for the basics?
Yes, thank you very much. Real estate is the biggest industry in the world. So it's not only in Nigeria, everywhere in the world, people want to invest in the real estate sector because it's such an industry that is stable, and it's what everybody needs. You must live in a house. You don't want to retire from here and still be paying rent. So everybody is always thinking about, thinking about how to leave a legacy for their children, and you can also use it as a leverage in the bank. So it's such an important industry that you must invest in. So when you mentioned about where is this money coming from, these are Nigerians in diaspora. They are really bringing in. When we had the dirty December, most of them came in and also invested in the real estate sector. So in the last 2 years, they've been the major bulk of purchasers of properties in Nigeria business, because they now believe in the system. Now we can talk more about security. There is more of we are sure that they can come home, unlike in the last 5 years, whereby you have to contend with the area of insecurity in the country. So because of now that we have they can come home and come and invest. And when you look at what is also happening in the West, like what the Trump administration is doing, and some other countries all around in the Western world, everybody is now conscious of coming back home to invest because there is no place like home.
Sorry, are they buying to jackpada, or they're just buying
they are
for their family members?
To have something here. They are buying to connect with their roots. They're also buying for their families. They're also using it as a form of investment. Okay, rather than putting all my eggs in one basket over there, let me diversify this investment. And because they are seeing the industry growing. For example, look at real estate property market in the Lekki axis. It's growing. People are coming home to invest. For example, Banana Island is such a place that everybody would like to invest in, because in the last 5 years, the market has grown. In fact, I actually checked that the rate at which it's appreciating in value, it's such enormous that you also want to put your money there, and you are sure of having good returns on your investment. And it's not really about you coming in to live in there. You can use it as a shortlet and be making daily money.
This growth,
yes.
Sorry for cussing, this growth, is it not antithetical to the growth of the economy in itself? Because one of the problems we have, let's use Lagos as an example, especially that Ikoyi and Lekki you mentioned. The houses are too pricey. There's a gentleman, maybe one of these days we'll get him, who has been at the vanguard of comparing. When you see a house of $5 million or $1 million, I thank God the tax policy now says that if you're pricing in dollars, you will also collect your money in dollars in terms of taxes. So you see a house of $5 million, $10 million, $7 million, even $15 million right here in Lagos, and compare that same house same amount, say in LA and some part of the West, the one in Lekki and the one in Ikoyi looks like a hostel, literally. So what is this boom really all about? Is it just artificial? Just explain to us what exactly is going on and speak to this issue of pricing, because that's argument of 1% or the 1%.
Yes. Well, for me, it is not too pricey, because for you to have that house ready, you need to spend so much in bringing it up. One, you look at the prices of building materials. In the last 2 years, you look at Naira dollar, rate, because it is what you buy that you're going to sell, and also you look at the ease of processing land title documents. You have to go through several bureaucracy, bottlenecks. It takes time, and how you have to maneuver your way with government officials.
Are you justifying the inflated pricing? Because the people who understand your sector are saying, even if you look at the quality of materials being used and the things that are used in the interior, they fall flat compared to the ones that are within the same range outside here.
Yes, you see, you cannot compare the market environs, in the West, outside the country with Nigeria. Nigeria is such a peculiar country in doing business. Our government needs to look into so many things before we can now provide these affordable homes. But as it is now, you can only sell what you have bought, because.
But relatedly, even at that, why hasn't this boom in the sector, why hasn't it solved the housing deficit challenge? Because we still have a housing deficit of about 28 million, and this is according to experts in the country. So this boom is not solving the problem at home, and it justifies Jeffrey's question about, the high falutin cost of homes.
Yes, we have that major challenge of building for the low-income earners and the middle-income earners. They are priced out from the property market. What he is talking about, a house of $5 million is meant for the elite and the high-income earners. So government needs to sit down and see how to look at how it was done in the 70s, in the 80s, the Baba Dakonde era. That is still possible. What they need to do is to look at that, the way it was done, and pick out the good side and see how to work around it. Because for you to build for the low-income earners now, you need to sit down with experts, and let's see how we can work it out. Number one is that there must be a viable mortgage system. In the West, that's how they do it. A very good mortgage system will help the off-takers, Nigerians, who are in need of this. Of these properties. Like, I could remember in the 70s, First Act 77, my daddy told me that with 3 naira you could obtain a form and spread your payment for about 20 years. That is payment for the house, But as it is it still possible? But a good mortgage system will actually, take that out of, be able to see how to provide more. And also government must see how to partner with developers, private developers. 90% of houses in Nigeria presently are built by private developers.
And politicians.
So they have to
Let's not forget them.
Well, they have to sit. They have to sit with them and say, how do we provide homes? Government owns land. The 1978 Land Use Act gives them the power over land. We, the developers, we have the expertise, the experience in building. Now they should see, okay, the off-takers, the good people of Nigeria, they are available to get into this property market. Now, what is missing? A viable mortgage system whereby everybody, Nigerians, will be able to access good mortgage system with good interest rate, single-digit interest rate.
So you're saying that in the absence of that, private developers will not go into building affordable homes for the middle class and those beneath that cadre?
Absolutely. You see, the bank should be able, as a developer, if I have very good rates, to build, Why not? We'll surely build. We are working on that. That's what we do every day. So we need that solid partnership, you know. Everybody, all parties should come together and sit, you know. Okay, the first again thing is that as at 1978, Babajide Konde era, they saw housing, provision of houses as a social investment, not as a money-making venture. You know, within 4 years, he was able to develop 16 estates, you know, just within 4 years. And they were able to sit with developers, banks to provide funds. The off-takers, they're always there, available.
I'm happy you've spoken to these institutional structures and Babajide Konde's time and all of that. Maybe there was less corruption. I would like you to speak to the corruption in the sector perpetrated by some politicians. Look, in this country, I know when a politician's house, when he was having issues with the EFCC, they seized about, though they returned it, about 30-something houses of his in Abuja. I'm not saying in Nigeria. Abuja alone, 30-something. So you can imagine what the crop of today politicians own. If you go to places like this Lagos, Rivers, couple of other places across Nigeria, politicians no longer buy houses, they buy clothes. Like they could, I don't know. You know, it's true. You know what I'm saying is true. Because that is part of the reason why they are cancelling out opportunities for people, using proceeds of corruption to buy, if they have the chance, to buy half of the state, some of them. So what can be done from a I know you're not a politician, and I'm sorry for dragging you in, but we're trying to solve a problem, here. How do we solve this problem of corruption proceeds being used to, you remember what was seized by the EFCC, record high, 700 and something, linked to, they say it's linked, that's the language used to Emefiele and all of that. Those are the things we're talking about. How do we help Nigerians? Because the housing deficit is very wide.
It's very wide, and it's getting wider every year. You see, our government needs to be intentional about providing homes for Nigerians. Like I said, they should see it as a social investment.
I want you to speak to the corruption.
Yeah, the corruption is there, and is affecting the country heavily. You know, you go to Abuja and you see how, you know, you can't just, for we businessmen, we just have to take off our eyes from that side, because we're not politicians, you know, we are just, but I pray our government, the government of Lagos State, the Ministry of Housing, that's the Minister of, you know, Housing, can see how to be more intentional about providing homes. You see, it is possible. Yeah, you know, it is possible. We actually, as a company, we have the biggest privately owned estate in the whole of Ogun State. And that project was an affordable project, you know. So, and we saw how it was done. So, for me, it's about you seeing how to partner with those who are doing the business. Now, we said politicians, we talked about developers building homes, and what are they building? They are building luxurious homes, you know, high-end homes, not a two-bed, a one-bed, a studio flat, a condos, for the good people of Nigeria. But it is possible. And how does it work? Let there be a workable mortgage system, a pool of funds. All these monies that politicians are taking away, they should bring it together. In fact, there is so much money to be made than what they are even making presently. Because if...
You mean the corrupt politicians, the alleged corrupt that stole the money should now bring it? That's a long shot.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that is also part of what is working against the private developers in the real estate sector.
Because if you bring this money together and there's a structure in place, thanks for technology. Now with tech now, you can easily track anything, you know, and we're talking about building repayment maybe for 10 years, and as you pay, you have your interest. You know, interest, single-digit interest, which will help, because the 32%, 25% is not visible. Many Nigerians will not be able to afford it. If you can do 6%, 7%, that is good. And the very property we are talking about, the project we are building, will be the collateral. So if you default,
collect your house.
the house goes back to the market. And as it goes back to the market, when you are selling, you're not selling at the old price. You're selling at the current price. So this pool of funds would actually be what? Growing. With everybody being intentional, being sincere, you know, being ready to build for Nigerians and to improve this country and to develop this country. So it is doable.
Key takeaways: a mortgage structure that works, capital for private developers, and low interest rates.
You didn't mention corrupt politicians.
Also ease of processing land titles. It is very important, and also they should review the existing land laws. That's 1978 Land Use Act. That should be reviewed, you know, because you know, we are still working with the 1978 laws, you know, guiding the.
I'm sure either by proxy or directly.
Guiding our industry.
The land ministries have heard you. Thank you so much, sir. We've been talking with Mr. Segun Oshodairo, CEO, Arkview Limited. Thank you so much for coming through at this time.
Thank you.
Let's get to that tech conversation. We'll be joined in the program by the CEO of Cyclex Africa, Sule David, joining us from Abuja studio. Mr. David, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, one of the things that the President, Bola Tinubu, is going to be in his midterm by May, which is next month, exactly half into his 4-year term. And he's made a lot of promises as far as young people and innovation and technology is concerned. So if you were to assess the ecosystem, the tech ecosystem, because I know tech ecosystem is one of those sectors like Nollywood that has evolved despite government. It wasn't necessarily because of government. The young people just rose. But
yes.
What's your assessment and in terms of contribution of the government so far in driving that space to whatever it is that you want to say to us now, where we can say we were rated on the continent of Africa?
To a very great extent, we say that the government is a very, very important factor for promoting technology, innovation, and sustainability. And to a very great extent, I believe that Nigeria, as a country in sub-Saharan Africa, we have the capacity, the youthful population of Nigeria, the youth at the moment, you know, we have the capacity, we have the ability to be able to drive innovation and also partner with government in achieving drastic growth economically, socially, and also environmentally. We see how much more technology seems to be an industry that is able to take a third world country down to up to first world. So, and to a great extent, I see a lot of young people daily who are doing amazing things like myself, and it gives me this hope and this assurance that that we are able to push innovation to the next level right here from Nigeria, building local solutions in Nigeria for Africa at large. And we are all willing to partner with the president in able to achieve this goal in this tenure.
I know that if I want to say the two biggest poster innovation in the tech sector, from where I sit, maybe e-commerce as well as fintech. But there is agriculture there that holds a lot of potential for accelerated growth, both for our GDP and for our economy in general. What is happening as far as innovation in agricultural sector is concerned?
Thank you very much. For me personally, I'm very particular about agriculture because I also major in agricultural engineering. So most of my, I've had a product before now called, that I co-founded with another company called AgroLancer that enables farmers come together and share resources. And at the moment, even on our current product, Cyclex Africa, we're also able to process and collect agricultural waste and give farmers incentives for that. So I believe agriculture is a huge industry, and as we're also able to see other big players globally, technology is a major tool for that. So So the need for us to bring technology more into agriculture, to drive the infrastructure, to ease the connectivity between farmers, between key industry players in the agricultural sector cannot be overemphasized. So as youth, I believe we have also the right skills to drive innovation and technology in agriculture. And but I believe the government can do a bit better. They can provide the right infrastructure for us to build on and for us to get enough support to drive our current innovation.
In relation to Jeffrey's question, the 8 unicorns are actually in Africa, in the Africa commerce and fintech space. And one wonders why that revolution is not being felt or seen in not just the agriculture sector, but in other sectors as well, where we need solutions, in security, where we need solutions. So what are your reflections where this is concerned, and what can be done to escalate the innovations that we see amongst Nigerian youths in these different spaces? Because we have Nigerian youths manufacturing drones, we have Nigerian youths manufacturing, agriculture, intervention, inputs, and all of that. So what would it take to escalate these inventions to commercial level?
We say a huge part of that will be on our infrastructure. When you see the unicorns, the 8 big unicorns, and you are seeing how they are all shiny around fintech, right? You will discover that they are able to have the basic infrastructure to drive their integrations, their technology, and also probably their network. They have the right support, they have the right base to drive these things, right? Which is a bit difficult here in Sub-Saharan Africa, because in as much as there's a product market fit for that, there's a huge market, and there are willing buyers, there are willing customers to be able to use these services, right? But the ideology, the mentality of a basic African needs to be re-engineered. This is how we need to drive sensitization. We need to allow young people know that you can actually build solutions for all these other sectors and scale it with technologies. Technology seems to be like a tool for every sector. You must not be a software developer to be able to enjoy the benefit of technology. You can be a regular farmer and a probably traditional farmer, but now you have to now understand that you can do your traditional work better with the aid of technology. You can be able to research on the kind of soil you have. You can be able to do further research on the kind of water content and the salt content of the water, so that you'll be able to push and drive agriculture better. Technology provides you that environment to know your seasons, your weather, and also the climate, understand how climate is able to affect your agricultural practices. This is how we need to drive this sensitization from not just the current existing farmers, but also the young people, the young ones in primary school. They need to understand that technology is not is a tool for them. So, and also they can actually do agriculture better. Agriculture is not a field for local people. Agriculture is actually a very huge industry that is able to take any country, from a third world country to a first world nation.
All right. Let's give it a human face now.
This has to be communicated, yes.
Let's give it a human face now. Your work says that you integrate cutting-edge technology with climate solutions, and you also foster green entrepreneurship. So what would you require as a tech intervention provider to scale your work to commercial level? What partnerships with government agencies would you require?
Particularly for myself, I will require the government to be able to implement policies that are going to ease our activities. In the business of waste management through CycleX Africa, I'm able to recycle and also communicate to a basic Nigerian that waste in Africa is not waste. Waste in Africa is actually treasure. You can actually get value from waste. And doing this, you need a lot of infrastructure, you need a lot of machinery, you need a lot of manpower to be able to process tons and tons of waste. If we're able to get policies that will reduce the tax we pay on even importing these recycling machines, you can buy a machine for over, $50,000, and when you are having to import them into Nigeria, you still pay a huge amount of money to clear these machines. If we're able to get these policies implemented, that's going to ease our importation. So there's going to ease our also operations. We're having to get a lot of charges, like the government taxes on our operations, on our activities, on our logistics. Right. We're able to, if we can get a bit of policy that's going to ease these things from the government, it will go a long way to support and to promote sustainable technology or climate technology here in Nigeria.
All right, fantastic. Sule David, we must thank you and appreciate you and encourage you to continue in the good work you're doing as far as that space in agriculture is concerned. Sule David is the CEO of Cycle X Africa. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, all right. So let's switch gears now. So what you were talking about on X, social media, X. That's why the hashtag is CTV Morning Brief. So let's now talk about some of the things we've been tracking as far as the social media is concerned. And one of which is a Nigerian woman showing off her football skills. So we're going to see the video in just a moment. Let's see what you have to say. Yes. I feel like putting Bukola to a test on this one. Bukola, can you can?
I won't fail you, Jeffrey.
Bukola, can you can?
Trust me.
And she's doing it in her living room. Okay. She's flipping. And like a mother, grandmother, like,
There you go. I'm sure she can take on Osimhen. Well, what are you saying this morning about the mother, showing off football skills in Uromi? Okay, we'll go to that later on.
So shout out to this lady. We don't know her name. Shout out to her. And so don't worry. I'll make sure I do a private recording of Bukola to try out her skills on this one. Okay, away from that, let's get to the next one that has to do with the interview that Shehu did with Edison Ehie, the chief of staff to Siminalayi Fubara, where he said he was actually offered 5 billion naira as bribe to implement some of these, to see how the governor could be impeached, which he rejected. Maybe let's take a listen to just an excerpt of it.
Open my phone to show you. The beginning of October 2023, where they had approached me with a bribe of 5 billion naira. It's there in my phone. It's here. My WhatsApp, I'll open it to show you. And that money was to be passed to me through Honorable. But I'll leave that for now. Because we are in the path of peace.
What the money is supposed to be for?
What is right?
Is the money supposed? What was the money supposed to be for? The 5 billion.
Lead us to this where we are. But I agree with the excellency of the principal. They have decided to pursue the path of peace for us to have a harmonious solution of this situation for all parties to have a stable government in Rivers, for Rivers people to enjoy the government they voted in.
Revelations that cannot be ignored, indeed. So what are you saying this morning about the Chief of Staff's disclosure? Oladele A is the first user who says, open the phone and show us evidence. Too much cho-cho-cho.
Cho-cho-cho.
Well, I don't know that. Cho-cho-cho is new for me. With no evidence to back up your claim. Well, he was trying to show us the WhatsApp interaction there, but it was instructive that he refused to disclose
because they are
the source of the incentive.
We would like to see it anyway. Principal XYX says lies. Wike has 27 assembly members loyal to him. What does he need Edison for? So for the record, Edison was one time a deputy speaker. Then he now became House leader when he was suspended by Martin Amiru. I think you have the next one.
Yes, and this next one is from Ofu Aji Aneme. I hope I got your name. Pardon me if I didn't. I hope you will be ready to provide the details because an attempt to commit a crime is also a crime.
Rivers and revelations. Rivers of revelation. One is Edison here, and then George Mweke.
The former head of service.
Yes. This is coming from Isaac Ojo. Says, sometimes I used to think that Nigerian matter is a curse. If not, how on earth can they be throwing money on useless things when our infrastructure is crumbling? No security, no light, but the road has been awarded several times without completion in sight. So maybe this person is saying...
Well, those are the real issues, really, Jeffrey.
These are the real issues.
These are the real issues.
Those are the ones that concern us. How to put food on our table. Okay, so I know that there was a time we talked about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger introducing levy on imported goods from ECOWAS. These guys mean business. They are not joking. But we don't have time to take all of that today on the program. But you can just check out, what's going on social media, as well as their dailies and headlines. And of course, you can stay with Channels Television for all the biggest news stories right here in Nigeria and across the world. I'm Jeff Ruzama. Thank you so much for your time and company. Bye-bye.
There's more to come. Sunrise Daily is up next. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.